host, C. Orson Brown, and I want to give a high five, a fist bump, a shout out to all the listeners tuned into this motivational channel. Glad to have my brother here today with us. He goes by the name as Soul. It's my soul brother. Hey, we want to talk about the subject of boots to business. Boots to business. And so those who have spent time in the military and have transitioned out of the military to start their own businesses and have become quite successful at it. But before we get to that though, so I want to just, man, you're looking stylish, you're looking good, man. It's always glad I have you on the podcast throughout the week, man, but it's always glad to have you and to do this one-on-one time together, which, you know.
Yes.
So, but I want to start, man, just, you know, where did you grow up? You know, I know you mentioned, you know, when we talked, you grew up in New York and New Jersey. You know, where exactly would you call home where you had opportunities to grow up and to develop as a young man?
That would be Flint,
Okay.
Michigan. That was my junior high school and high school years. I grew up, you know, man, I don't even, we wasn't well off, put it like that.
Yeah,
we
sure.
I grew up, I have four brothers and one sister.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a struggle growing up in Flint. You know, I made it do what it do.
Yeah.
Hustle hard, you know, and once I left, you know, I went from there.
No, but hold up, you grew up in Flint though, right?
Yeah,
so with four other siblings, it was five of you all?
It was 6 of us total.
6 of us total.
Yeah, 6 total.
So come on, man, let's rock with this thing. You're not gonna just go from A to Z just like that. So you mentioned you hustle hard. Now we've had some sidebar conversations that explain to the people hustle hard. Some may not understand what the term mean. What does that mean? How you was hustling hard, you was making it do what it do.
After my mom lost her job in the shop, you know, I was 14 and I had to, my older brother was already gone.
Got it.
And, you know, I was the oldest one at the house. Well, I had an older sister, but I was the oldest male in the house. So, you know, I had to, you know, make sure that we ate. You know, make sure that, you know, lights was gonna be on.
Right.
So, you know, I went out there and did whatever I had to do to make sure that happened. You know, I got my first job, you know,
paycheck job.
Yeah, paycheck job.
Where you had to sign, deposit.
Actually, it wasn't even a paycheck job. It was an under the table job. I was 14.
Okay.
I worked for this little store called Hutchinson Drug Store in my Flint. You know who Hutchinson was. I used to work for them for a while, you know. So I put like this, I had to do legit stuff so everything else, you know, look good.
So you're doing your job on the side, but you got the hustle on the other side where you can.
And I, you know, and I mean, it was my thing. It was stuff that we had to do to, you know, make ends meet.
To eat, to survive.
I grew up with, you know, like I said, younger siblings that had to, you know, had to go to school, had to eat. So it was like my mom wasn't working, we wasn't getting any money to come into the house. So, you know, I felt it was my responsibility to make sure that, you know, what little money we had, we could stretch it or do something else with it and, you know, make sure that everything was okay. And at 14, like I said, there's nothing like no choice to make you a man. You know? So I had to go out there and do what I had to do to make sure that we was fed and we was, you know, lights was still on. But I never let my mom see that side.
I got you.
Like my mom thought, you know, oh, my son, he working at Hutchinson, he going to school, he played football, he ran track. You know, I did all this other stuff. That was for my mom to see, don't make sure my mom seen that without knowing, because, you know, she don't question, where you getting this money from? Where, how you 14, 15, how you paying, help me pay bills? So I had to make sure that, you know, we had a legit side to everything.
What was it like though, you know, having your mom, watching your mom, man, struggle? Dad not in the picture, you got 5 other siblings, well, one is gone, your older brother is gone, but now there's you and, you know, 4 other youngsters. What's that like for you, man, having to experience that yourself.
It's difficult. It's like,
Yeah.
because your mom, like I said, you, for most people, you see your mom as like this invincible woman.
Yeah.
As, you see her as the backbone of everything. She is the strength. She is the strength of everything.
Yeah.
So when you see her at her lowest point, it's like it's hard for you to be like, you want to lift her up, you want to pick her up, but you like, man, how do I hold up the person who's supposed to be
absolutely
the backbone, who's supposed to be the matriarch of this family, and it's difficult. It takes a toll on you, and then when she supposedly has a man in her life, and he ain't doing shit.
Gotcha.
Excuse my name, but he ain't doing shit. But
speak frank, speak up.
That's even worse, because you're like, okay, this is supposed to be a man. This is supposed to be this man in your life, but yet you struggling. I don't understand that. I didn't get it, and it made it even worse, because it's like, okay, I shouldn't be out here doing this when you have somebody here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's just even worse for me, because I'm like, okay, is this what a man's
supposed to be doing?
Like,
right.
Okay,
you got some man is there, but he really is not there.
Yeah.
So you still actually kind of suffering or struggling. The fact you watching your siblings, struggle, and so as a result, and that's listen, man. So we've talked openly. Sometimes some of us, the life that we've come from, the experiences which we have had to endure, man, it kind of builds a sense of resiliency and a sense of grit. You had no other way.
Yeah.
Man, you had to do whatever you had to do, whether good, bad, or indifference, legal or illegal. Some people didn't choose that life. Some people had other options. And people may say, well, you didn't have to do that. You did what you did. You did what you felt like you had to do to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was,
what lessons you think that taught you having to do that? Because you were also in school, you were playing sports, you were athletic. What were your grades like as well?
Ooh, that's a different story. Honestly, I was a lazy kid.
Gotcha.
I never believed in grades. I ain't gonna even lie about that. I was smart. I was smart. I just was lazy, because it's like, in your neighborhood, you look around and be like, okay, I know smart dudes who ain't doing nothing.
Got it.
I know smart dudes who only outlet was to either play football, or they rapped, or they inflate. You worked at GM. Those are three options you had.
Yeah.
It wasn't you. I don't care how smart you was. You still was either gonna work for GM,
right,
or you was gonna be a rapper or play sports. Those only three. It wasn't too many scientists coming out of Flint, or coming, from where we came from. So being smart was like, okay, because I remember having an argument with a teacher, and she tried to, she was like, she said, well, she tried to, how to say something about my grades in front of the class.
Yeah.
And she said, she was like, well, for somebody who, so smart, you got a C in my class. And I said, oh, that's how we gonna do it?
Yeah.
So I asked, I asked one student, I said, what you getting out of this class? And she said, well, I got an A. And I said, what you trying to be when you grow up?
Wow.
And she said, well, I want to be a veterinarian or something like that. I said, so technically, you don't even need this class. I said, so in 10 years, your A and my C gonna be the same thing.
Right.
And I asked another student, I asked them to do the same thing. I said, what are you trying to be? And he said, well, I play ball. I said, so your B, and you ain't even trying to be here.
Sure.
So in 5 years from now, your B and my C the same thing, because you ain't even doing. I said, so again, evidently, these grades really don't matter, because you ain't. And then she got mad again, evidently. It threw me out the class. But my thing was, the thing about it was that, being in Flint, we didn't. I mean, grades wasn't, a high priority. It was like, okay, it wasn't a way out. So I was late. So I was like, okay, I knew the stuff, but it was like, okay,
you were trying to survive.
Yeah.
Now you were in sports. What sports did you play?
Football and ran track.
Oh, you ran track as well.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like? You kind of lit up, man, when you said I played.
I love it. I mean, cause
man, that was the sweet spot for you.
Football is my home.
Right.
I played football from day one. I love football.
What position?
Well, I started off as a wide receiver, and then when you first get that one hit, that change your whole life. You be like, oh,
one of those hits, but they were waiting.
I said, oh, right. You know what, coach,
right.
I played the other side.
Right, let me do the hit.
And I was like, he got too much gratification out there right there. So after that, I started playing. I played corner, and then I went then I played linebacker and safety.
So you were able to do the hit?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Once I started hitting, it was a difference. Yeah, I love hitting. And then track was. And only reason, and I'm gonna tell you, it was funny because only reason I ran track and played sports was I had anger issues.
Yeah.
And I remember my counselor, Mr. Bell. I never forget Mr. Bell. He sat down one day. He was like, "Well, I need to fix these anger issues before you, do something that And he did. He had me. He put me into sports, and I never forget how it changed. It literally changed my perspective on things because I had an outlet now to put this stuff.
Gotcha.
And so it was a life changer.
So he sounds like he was one of your early influencers.
Yeah.
Because who would you say who were your earlier influences that impacted you, made a difference?
My pops. That's my grandfather.
Yeah.
Not my father, my grandfather.
Pops.
We call him pops.
We
call my grandfather pops. And growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, and it was like that was the first man. Like I said, not male. The first man that who changed my life. And he always had these sayings when I was growing up, and I never understood none of them. Like you can't buy the cow to get milk for free. And I'd be like, what the cow got to do with milk? I ain't even drinking milk. I never understood it. You're like, what?
Country sayings.
Yeah, he always had these sayings,
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got older that they started literally hitting me, and I was a child at the time. And when I got older, they just started affecting my life. Like, oh my God, this is what I remember what Pop. And I always tell my wife these things, and I'd be like, well, my grandfather, your grandfather's crazy. And I'd be like, hey, now. But the sayings work. It don't matter how you look at it.
Sure.
Because I know, like, you hurt yourself, like, he do something and that you weren't supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And he always be like, he'd look at me and be like, if you did it to yourself, it ain't supposed to hurt.
Right.
And I'd be like, what? No, it still hurt.
Right,
But if you was told not to do it, then it must not hurt because and I never understood the whole back of it until I got older.
Yeah.
And I had kids, and I used to tell my kids, my wife, like, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, that's the saying.
But Pops man had a great influence.
Yeah. And then it wasn't until I got about 17 when my best friend, her father, Mr. Taylor, I met Mr. Fred Taylor. That man has literally shaped me into what I am today. Without him, and that's the honest God truth, without him, I don't know where I would be. Like literally, it was he took me and made me into what I am today. And I remember just looking at him growing up, watching him, how he acted and everything, and then, I used to always think he didn't see me.
Yeah, wow.
I used to always think he didn't see me, and then I never forget the day we was in church, and I used to go to my church for years, and I stopped going to my church, and then they invited me to theirs, and I was going to that church for a couple of months, and then, the doors of the church open,
sure.
And I used to always just sit there.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, one day I was sitting there, and then the door of the church opened, and I was just sitting there, and I just felt his hand on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I turned around, and he was standing there.
Yeah.
And he said, it's time.
Wow.
And that's at that moment, literally, that moment right there.
That's awesome.
Changed everything about me, because it was like, I knew he seen me.
Yeah.
And then it was like, after that, I'll never forget the day I graduated from college, and they was in the stands.
Yeah.
And it's like, you graduate, my own family wasn't even there.
But he was there.
But him and Mr. Taylor was right there in the stands, and it was just, it meant the world to me. And again, everything about me is because of him.
Yeah. You think those influences, man, because we're crossing to the military, but you had mentioned that you went to college. So out of high school, did you get a scholarship on football or basketball?
Nope.
Or any sports or track?
No,
You think those influences encouraged you to go to college, and what did you major in when you were there?
I actually went to college for architecture.
Mm-hmm. But where'd you go to school?
I went to Alabama State first.
Yeah.
And then I ended up leaving and coming back. When Alabama State first, then I ended up leaving and going and then coming back to Michigan.
Okay.
And I went to finished in Michigan. Went to Baker College for my architecture degree because they didn't have a program at the time at U of M for architecture. And so I went to Baker to get my 2-year degree at first, and then I went to U of M and finished up at U of M for my architecture degree.
What inspired you though?
My grandfather.
To go, your grandfather, Pops.
Yeah,
right?
because
so Pops inspired you to go to college, but then also
when I to go to college,
interest in architecture.
I'm gonna tell you, after he passed away, my grandfather passed away. I remember we was cleaning the house that we lived in, you know, because my grandfather passed away. My grandma came to live with us in Michigan, and so we was cleaning up the house, and I never forget we was in his attic. He had that was his man cave.
Right.
For the ones that know where the attic is, you know.
That's way back.
Yeah, way back.
Right. I don't think they make them no more.
I don't know, but we had the attic. That was like a living, that was like another room.
Sure.
And we was up there and we was cleaning out, and I found these drawings.
Wow.
That my grandfather did, and I didn't even. And I remember I was like, and we opened them up.
Yeah.
And it was architectural drawings.
Wow.
And I thought there was something that, you know, somebody did or something, but. And I found out they was his. He drew all these.
Wow.
And I was like, I was asking like why he never did this, because he worked in a dye factory.
Sure.
That's what my grandfather did, and he was in he was in the military, but he worked in a dye factory. Because at that time, you know, they wasn't getting jobs.
Yeah.
You know, you wasn't no black architects. There wasn't no, you know, and I was like, oh my God, like wait a minute, why? And then you know, they was explaining to me why, and I was like. I said, I'm gonna pick this up because I drew from it. I drew that was my biggest thing. I drew. I know how to draw and everything. And I was like, I said, okay, I'm gonna do this.
I'm gonna do this in college.
Yeah. Okay. And so
I
did. I went to school for it. Got my degree in it, and and I was like, okay. But then I realized that wasn't my purpose. It was a purpose I picked up because I thought I wanted it. But then after being in it, it was the same thing. Like I understood why he didn't do it because there wasn't a lot of us in it.
I got it.
Especially at the time, when I graduated, you didn't have a lot of black architects in the game, and it was hard to get in the game.
Sure. Yeah, to have those
influences. You couldn't even get. It was a lot of us couldn't even get internships.
Yeah.
You know, into a firm because again, you was black, and honestly, and you can say what you want to say, but I know my grades was just as good as anybody else.
Absolutely, of course.
And so,
but just the opportunities. It was definitely absolutely. So there was a struggle. You know, some architecture, other in some fields, engineering.
Right.
You know, it was definitely difficult at that time to try to get internships or see so many other professional black men specifically or women. Then women was almost none.
None, yeah.
Right. So what influenced you then to go into the military? Because you're an architect. You know, what influenced you to go into the military?
The cost of school, honestly, I was in school. I was at U of M. I never forget, and tuition went up. The year, my second year, and I was like, look, my pocket's already, and I didn't want to do, I didn't want to do loans. I didn't want to owe, loans and everything. And I was like, and then I ended up talking to a recruiter one day at U of M. A recruiter up at U of M, and I was talking to him, and then
he sold it. Yes.
Yeah, and he did. I was like, he was like, you can still go to school, and we'll get in, blah blah, and all that there.
Up level your life.
And I was like,
be all you can be.
And I was like, I said, okay, well, what I got to do? And he was like, well, you know, you pass your PT test, blah, blah, do all this other stuff. He said, I see you play football, right? So PT test shouldn't be a problem for you. And, you know, you just got to be ass fat, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, you know, hey, we knock it out. And I never get it. And knocked it out. And, you know, and they was like, oh, you know, I scored high on the ass, and they was like, oh, you can do, you know, we got jobs all blah, blah. But it was like every job you really wanted was on hold. They was like, oh, it was the, you know, delayed program on this and delayed program on that. You're like, okay, well, like
you want to be in.
Yeah, I wanted an engineering program.
Nice.
And then it was a year wait on it. And I'm like, I can't stay here another year, just not doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so I joined the infantry. They had a bonus for infantry.
Sure.
And I joined infantry.
Did you join as an officer or you joined enlisted?
No, I joined enlisted.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you came in though, infantry, already have your degree, and you decided, hey, I just need to get away from here. I just need to go in, graduate, and go in the infantry. Yeah, what was that like? So how long did you stay, so you in actual infantry, did you have a specialty, weapons? Did you have or bombs or
I was
grenade?
What
was your specialty?
I was force recon. I was hand-to-hand. I was hand-to-hand. I was
okay.
My specialty is my specialty is hand-to-hand. Well,
Sure.
I'm infantry.
Okay.
So my specialty is basically you.
Did you
because I was smart? Because of my IQ, you know, and I'm not to brag, but my IQ and everything, it made me perfect for, if, you know, for extraction duties and all, because, you know, I can go in places and come out places, do what I need to do, get out, and because I knew how to, like,
read maps,
That was one of my biggest things. Like map reading, like you can drop me anywhere.
Right.
You can drop me anywhere, and I promise you, I'll find my way. I can literally, whether it's the stars or the water. Honestly, that's funny. I know it's funny.
You know how to do it.
You
had great experience.
So,
so did you end up going Ranger or Special Ops?
No, Force Recon. That was
okay.
Force Recon is you have your, you know.
Yeah.
It's right up under, like, you know, Navy SEAL, Green Beret, Force Recon down there. We all did the same training, basically, but it wasn't, you know, we had missions too. We had, you know, go do stuff and everything, but, you know,
Did you roll over into one of the sniper teams?
I did, actually.
Yeah.
We used to call them Magic Men.
Okay.
It was called Magic Men back then. It was fun. I ain't gonna lie. It was the training was fun. It was, you know, I remember watching a dude, because I remember the reason I wanted to get in. I watched a dude shoot a target 500 yards away, and I said, that is incredible. Like wait a minute, that's 500 yards.
That's 5 football fields.
Yeah, people don't understand 500 yards. Yeah,
that's 5 football fields for a target.
And even in training, even in basic or whatever, you only 300 is the max.
Yeah.
And I knew people who couldn't even do 300.
Wow, Marine, man. Once Marine, always Marine.
See,
I will reach out and touch you.
Yeah, and I tell people like
at 500 yards.
And I remember hitting that 300, and I remember my trainer come on. He said, "You ever heard of Magic Man?" And I said, "No." He said, "I think you'd be perfect for it." And cause you put a rifle from my hand and it's over. I don't care where you at. So I did that. I joined them. I did that. You know, and it was, you know, I thought the only thing I didn't do was airborne, and I said no. I drew the line there. Nah, I don't jump on nothing.
It's a whole different level of pain.
Especially
you get older, and I'm over 50. I can feel it everywhere.
I told them, I said, they was like, well, we want you to go to Bragg and do airborne. I said, not gonna happen. And I said, they put doors on planes for a reason. That's,
I feel pain in places I didn't know.
That's a perfectly good door on that plane. I'm not jumping out of it.
What transitioned you? Because how many years did you stay in the military?
I did 17. Then I did 17, and then I was literally forced out because my knees got bad. So
you were medically retired?
Yes, I was medically retired.
Yeah, this life is tough. This life definitely beat you up. I mean,
I've had concussions, I've had everything.
And I want to pause and say, I appreciate your service, man. Those who literally serve, we have 300 something million people in America. It's literally 1 or less than 1% of those who serve who raise their hand and say, I want to serve my country and protect those, the freedoms in which we stand upon. So I appreciate your service, man, your sacrifice, and all those who support the military and those who have served. So how did you begin to make the transition? I mean, 17 years you got MedBoard. Were you prepping yourself before you got out to now transition into business? Because I want to segue into your business.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, I never seen myself. I don't know how to put it. I always kept the military and my civilian separate.
Right.
So I was never. You see a lot of military men who are all military all day.
Yeah,
every day.
sure. Yeah.
They sergeant even at home. They if I run into the gas station, I got to say sergeant or sir. Yeah. I've never been that guy. Yeah. I've never been that guy. I've always separated myself. Mm-hmm. So like every day I take my boots off. Like every day. And I take my boots off. My boots never went in my house.
Gotcha.
I take my boots off at my door. When I walk in my house,
Were you mentally, emotionally separating yourself? I mean, that was always from the time you came in until the time.
Because I always looked at it as a job. It wasn't who I was. It was my job. That was my job.
How did you separate? How did you begin to transition though from the military into business? Because once you got out at 17 years, you were medically retired. Because let's talk.
And that's the hardest part.
Yeah. Because I want to definitely talk about your business.
I was infantry, and then I was field artillery. Mm-hmm. So none of them transitions to outside unless you join in like Blackwater or some stuff like that.
Exactly.
That
some
none
of those
that,
other little secret units. Yes.
None of that translates outside the military.
Yeah.
But the good thing about it was, like I said, I had my architectural, and I was doing, and I learned graphic design while I was in the military.
Okay.
So for me to transition, it was okay because I actually had skills.
Yeah, the architecture skills.
Yeah, I had skills. So I was like, okay, I'm good. It don't matter whether I did 25, 30 years,
sure.
I have skills other than the military.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when I transitioned out, it wasn't hard for me because, again, like I said, I've always kept it separated. So to leave the military wasn't no big thing for me. It wasn't like I walked out and was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
But when you got out, though, did you start your business immediately, or it took you some time to discover what you wanted to do?
My graphic design business, I literally always had, because even in the military, I was doing stuff.
I got you.
As far as like design and stuff and everything, and while I was in the military. But it wasn't on a scale. I had to make it public.
I got it.
And that was the turnaround. Like, how do I make this public? How do I transition this to commercial outside the military? And that was the thing. And I was like, okay, that was the transition I had to learn to make. It wasn't until I did my magazine, that's when everything started coming to fruition, and everything started to change as far as like my graphic design business and the magazine was going hand.
It's putting it together.
Right,
I mean,
and then it started.
And I can see how you took your creative skill set in terms of being an architecture to transition that into graphic design, and then also too, you write. You do also poetry. The folks don't know that you also do poetry as well.
Yeah, that was
more
of my outlet.
Yeah.
But
so tell us about the magazine. How long have you had the magazine, and tell us about the magazine.
Magazine, it's called the Underground Monthly. It's now an online magazine. The magazine was created to actually help military business owners.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends who were actually retired and had businesses. My brother, I had a lot of friends who had it. So I couldn't figure out a way to bring their awareness to their businesses. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I created this pamphlet, a nice little pamphlet, where I took it to different stores and everything. And I designed I designed it, everything in it, and I had like all the businesses of military-owned businesses. And people started coming to me like, oh, I love this, you know, you should have more content in it and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay. So every month I'd add something to it or I'd do something to it, and then it just grew and it just took off. And then, like I said, it went from just Killeen, and then I was at Cove, and then it was San Antonio, and I had it down. It was just grown people was like, how do I get in it and all this other stuff. And then my graphic design started going because people were seeing what I was doing in the mag. And plus I worked for Office Mac for like 7 years. And I started
doing the
clientele,
designs and all of that stuff there, building clients.
building clientele.
People getting to know you.
I was building clientele there. And then once I left there, Office Mac, but I took like all my clients with me.
Yeah.
I literally, everybody there, I was like, hey, I'm leaving, and I got my, you know, and they was like, and I still got people who literally still go up to Office Depot or Office Mac now and be like, hey, is Ray still here? And they'd be like, they'd be like, no, and then they had called me because they got my number, like, hey, I went up there and he was gone. I'd be like, yeah, what you need? So because of my work, I still have people that still, you know, wanted me to design for them. So
you still design now?
Oh yes.
What's the name of your design? How can people?
It's called Soul Graphics.
Soul Graphics.
Right.
SOUL.
Yes, SOUL, Soul Graphics. And that's, like I said, if you get the magazine, I advertise in the magazine, but my email address is undergroundmonthly@gmail.com, and you can always submit whatever pictures, ideas. I do logos, I can design logos, grab whatever you need, flyers, business cards. I don't print.
Yeah, sure.
You have to understand, because I get people who text me and be like, hey, I need some stuff printed. And I'd be like, I don't print.
You design it for you, you do this, which is really great, man. I want, again, as we wrap it up, close, that you would tell people how can they contact you, you know, so they need things created, designed, you do, I'm sure, funerals, pamphlets, all those things. So how can you
can reach me, like I said, you can reach me at undergroundmonthly@gmail.com. My phone number is 254-251-9950. Let me say that again, 254-251-9950. And the magazine, the Underground Monthly, you can subscribe to that at www.undergroundmonthly.com. And you get, it's a monthly subscription of literally, I only charge